يا المعنى خط بكتابك الترحيب لو سراب ليلك وجنة بالدجا الليل.
Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. Brothers and sisters, respected elders, guests, friends, everyone. I bid you the greeting of believers, the greeting of the Anbiya of Allah Azza wa Jal, the greeting of Al-Jannah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm your brother in Islam, Jalal ibn Saeed, and we're here live today with my brother Roshan, all the way from Kabul. Assalamu alaikum, Roshan.
Wa alaikum salam, Jalal. Nice to see you.
And you. So glad we could do this, and I'm so grateful. May Allah bless you, preserve you, grant you success in this amazing journey you've taken. And with 5 pillars. I mean, there's so much to say. Do we start with 5 pillars? Do we start with a bit of background? Brother Roshan, tell us about your background, because you've been in media for such a long time. I want my viewers to know you like I know you.
Well, I've been a journalist, I think, for about 22 years, something like that. And I started out in just local newspapers near London, in Maidenhead. And then I moved into kind of TV documentary making with Granada, making shows for kind of ITV, BBC, mainstream channels. And then I got a bit fed up with the mainstream media, to be honest, because I wanted to do kind of Muslim journalism. So I moved to Doha for several years and worked with Al Jazeera out there with the English language website. Yeah. And then when I came back to Britain, I was with Islam Channel for a time. Then I was with Press TV for a longer period of time before I kind of started my own thing, wanted to be my own boss, not have to kind of, take orders from anybody. So I thought I'd start my own thing up, and that's 5 pillars. So we've been going for about 8 years now. And we're kind of like a British Muslim news website. Yeah. And, across all these social media platforms, trying to cover British Muslim or Muslim news at home and abroad. Yeah. And alhamdulillah, the Ummah has supported us. And so we've expanded. And that's one of the reasons why I'm currently in Afghanistan.
That's a really nice recap. Brothers and sisters, Brother Roshan's being a bit modest there as well, mashallah, Allah bless you. I was really excited, in fact, when I saw your first Facebook post and you said, I just landed in Kabul. I was like, what? I was quite excited. And there's quite a few YouTubers that have been born from this internet age in Kabul. And they're all in Pashto and in Farsi, and it's a heck of a lot to translate. I tried to do subtitling on some of them, but it's really difficult. But from the ground, the stories I get from these YouTubers who are on the ground, and I think they're the most trustworthy source in terms of news, because they're there, compared to the narratives that are constantly spun at Muslims and by Muslims even in the West. And then to hear you out there really put my heart at ease. And I think a lot of people are looking forward to the many things that you're going to bring back over the next few weeks as you post, because I know it takes time. Take your stories, create the articles and post them up. This is going to take time, but everyone's so excited to hear. So tell me what your first day was like and what you expected and what you got from you arrived in Kabul.
Well, I mean, as soon as, basically the Taliban took over a few months ago, I wanted to come because it was the biggest news story in the world. Yeah. And I'm a journalist. So when I see something massive happening, especially in the Muslim world, I just want to be there. That's my natural instinct. And in the past, I've done a lot of war reporting from places like Iraq and Libya and Gaza and many other places around the world. But I haven't done that for a few years. So I must admit I had itchy feet. I really wanted to get out here. But it wasn't easy, to be honest. And like everyone else, I was watching the news, thinking that this is a war zone, it's dangerous. And I really wanted to, I didn't want to just turn up in Afghanistan. I wanted to turn up knowing that I already knew local people who were going to take care of me. And that I had certain assurances, especially given that normally when I go abroad, whether it's to an Arab country or wherever, I can speak the language. Whereas here, I don't speak Dari or Pashto, and not a lot of people speak English. So I wanted to know that when I got here, I would be able to function properly. So I got those assurances. And about 2 weeks ago, I got permission to come from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs here. And I flew to Doha, picked up my visa in Doha, and then I got a charter flight to Kabul. There aren't any commercial flights, so you have to get special flights for journalists, humanitarian aid workers, dignitaries, etc., etc. And alhamdulillah, I got on one of those flights. You know, I've been to about 25 to 30 Muslim countries in my life, but I never thought I'd make it to Afghanistan. So when I was kind of flying over those kind of mountainous, barren, desolate areas of southern Iran and then Afghanistan, and that beautiful approach through the mountains into Kabul, you know, I was just saying, alhamdulillah, you know, and I touched down and I just thought, you know, by the grace and permission of Allah, I'm here. And I never thought I would be, but I'm here and I'm going to make the most of it. And should I take a breath or shall I continue?
No, I take a breath for like 2 seconds. But you know what? The brothers and sisters who are online watching, and I want to ask you guys to please spread the word right now. Share the link, share the YouTube link, share it on Facebook, share it on Instagram, everywhere. Get the word out to a lot of our friends and family who need to know. A lot of people need to know what's going on, and that's what we're going to find out today. So yeah, catch your breath, take a moment, and let's start, because I'm taking notes here. I'm so excited. I want to hear everything, but I don't want to rush you. So start from the beginning.
Yeah.
That's
well,
right.
I think
I
first
want to
of all,
find out later about how to get on one of those flights. Okay, so when I go,
yeah, sure, obviously, and I'll maybe give some advice to the viewers about if they want to go to Afghanistan as well, the pros and cons. Just a note for your viewers. You can watch the work I've been doing. I've already uploaded 3 or 4 reports. You can watch it on our YouTube page, the 5 Pillars YouTube page. There's also a few articles on the website as well, but the main body of work has gone on the YouTube page. Yeah. And I've been out in the markets. I've been to the American Embassy. I have been to the, today I did a long interview with the Minister for how can I put this, for promoting virtue and forbidding evil. That is the name of the ministry. So that I did a long interview with him. You can watch that on our YouTube page. So yeah, I've been out and about. I'm going to get out of Kabul, maybe to Jalalabad in the next few days. I want to interview some, you know, kind of quite senior officials that I've been promised interviews with in the next few days as well. And yes, there's more to come. But I think, Jalal, in terms of, I've been here for a week, and I've been working every day out and about for a week. I do not want viewers to think that I'm some kind of expert on Afghanistan. I'm not. But I can give you the benefit of my on-the-ground experience over the last week, and I'm going to be here for probably another 10 days. What I would say, my early impressions are that this is not a war zone. It is not dangerous. This is not a dangerous place. The war is over. When people think of Afghanistan, they think of war. They think of terrorism. They think of security risks. I've experienced none of that. And I've been out and about all the time. I don't feel, I probably feel, you know, more at risk in London, you know, in certain areas at midnight, quite frankly, than I feel here. Of course, there is a terror threat from ISIS-K, which is ISIS Khorasan, and they have carried out some deadly attacks nationwide over the past few months. But it isn't a serious threat to the government here. You know, they're terrorists. They do kill people, but it's not as if bombs are going off left, right, and center. They're isolated attacks, and the Taliban look like they are getting on top of that group as well. So it's not a war zone. It's pretty safe. It's as safe as it's been in 43 years, Jalal, since the Soviets invaded. So that's the main thing I want to say to people, is this is not a war zone. However, the main story here is the financial and economic crisis. Ever since the Taliban took over, the Americans have sought to punish them for defeating them, ultimately, by imposing a blockade, sanctions, freezing $9 billion in overseas Afghan assets, stopping countries from recognizing the new Islamic Emirates. There are many countries like Iran, Pakistan, Russia, China, Qatar, and others who would recognize the government here tomorrow and would trade with them and do commercial activities with them, help their economy. However, they're not doing it because they are scared of American sanctions. So America is conducting economic terrorism on Afghanistan, and that is having catastrophic consequences as winter approaches. The World Food Programme says that 23 million Afghans, as you know, the population here is about 38 million, 23 million of them are under risk of starvation or food insecurity as winter approaches. And the winters here can be very, very harsh. People are living on less than $1 a day. 95% of the population is under the threshold of poverty. And this isn't the kind of poverty I'm talking about in the UK. This is medieval type of poverty. So we have a huge financial crisis happening at the moment. And I guess what the Americans want to happen is everyone's going to start blaming the Taliban for this. And they're going to get fed up with them because they can't pay salaries, you know, people can't eat, and everyone wants to leave the country. So that's the situation here at the moment. It's quite depressing in many ways, and quite shameful for the international community, which has waged war on this country for 20 years or more, and now it is waging economic war on the country.
I'm seeing so many comments online on the internet from different kinds of people about the Taliban. There's Afghans who have a massive campaign just constantly attacking issues of girls' schools and women treatment and anything and everything they can think of negative about the Taliban. And if anyone speaks positively, they're called a Taliban sympathizer, Taliban supporter. What advice do you have for this situation that most Muslims are kind of feeling a bit forced to feel one way over the other?
Well, as a Muslim myself, I mean, I honestly wouldn't consider myself to have ever been a Taliban supporter. I guess Islamically, I'm not really from the same kind of philosophy. I don't completely share their kind of school of thought, et cetera, and their outlook. However, I was happy that the American occupation and the British occupation had finished, because as a natural anti-imperialist, I don't believe in any country in the world being occupied by a foreign nation. So I was happy because of that. And also, obviously, as a Muslim, you're kind of happy when people come in that want to implement Islam into society. So obviously, I have certain sympathies in that area. However, I had reservations about things like women's education, you know, and girls' education, the role of women in life. I don't really, I think, I'm not an Islamic scholar, Jalal, as you know, but from what I do know about Islam, you know, stopping girls from being educated from 13 onwards, it doesn't come from Islam. I think it comes from a culture, rather. And I think the Taliban, they have this Pashtunwali kind of code, which they mesh with Islamic law, and the kind of attitude towards female education and women in general comes from their kind of code, which the Taliban didn't invent. It's been the Pashtun code for over 1,000 years, so it's nothing new.
Well, I am Pashtun.
Yeah,
and my family background is Pashtun, and I've never known this code. This is brand new to me. I'm Pashtun, and this code of not letting girls go to school after the age of 13 is brand new to me. I've had I will say, there are women, elder women in my family, some that have passed away, Allah have mercy on them. They never were educated. And when I question the reasons, is because of the villages they were in, there was no education. It wasn't that they were refused, there wasn't any. And if there was any education, it was very light level. A man would come from a different city, a different village, and he would teach certain villagers. And yeah, girls after the age of 13, whether they're old enough or mature enough, etc., hijab, there isn't much hijab in those tribes, in those cultures. So for that reason, they're out of sight, out of mind type of thing. So I don't agree with that. But yeah, this is, it's quite sad. Other than the poverty excuses they used to have, I've never heard of a Pashtunwali code or that kind of a doctrine as a reason for this. So I'm quite surprised. So while you're there on the ground, Is this what you're hearing from the Taliban officials themselves, that they do not believe girls after the age of certain age should not be educated?
I have asked them that question. I asked them that question today. I mean, the situation is there are several different provinces in Afghanistan, and some provinces.
I'm sorry. I just want to be clear on that first. Have you heard any Talib officials say girls after the certain age should not be educated?
No. What they say is that we're having financial problems.
But the same excuses as my grandmother, who was never educated. You know, Allah bless my grandmother. I used to see her in the night reading Quran every night. Most pious woman I know. Reading Quran. And then one day I saw her, I was walking by praying tahajjud, and as I'm walking by, I see her fingers moving really fast across the page for the first time. I sat down, I said, Aji Jana, this is how I addressed her. Aji Jana, it's a Quran Sarawayam. Let me read with you. You're reading a bit fast. She looked at me and smiled, cutest face, little face. She goes, I can't read, son. I was devastated. Tears came out of my eyes. And I said, so what are you doing? She goes, I just read like Bismillah, and I'm rubbing my fingers because I love looking at the words of Allah. And it killed me, made me so sad. So I started teaching her. I started sitting with her, saying, why? Yeah. And when I asked about this, about the elder women in the past from the villages, why didn't they study? And it was always lack of availability in those days, in the 50s, 40s, etc. So, but now, if the Taliban are giving similar excuses, they need to be addressed. But I have yet to hear, the way I see it in the media is not what you said, what I said about my grandma. What I hear now by Muslims in the West and non-Muslims in the West is the Taliban do not want girls educated. And I've never heard them actually say that. And that's why I'm asking bluntly, if you can keep asking everyone until you find at least one that says that.
I mean, I think there's a lot of lies about what's going on in Afghanistan, but I think there is some truth about the girls' education issue. There are provinces in Afghanistan that are educating girls up to the age of 18. And the Taliban is not stopping that from happening. But in Kabul, for example, here, which is the major city, 8 million people, they're not being educated past 13 years old. And when you ask Taliban officials about that, they don't say girls cannot be educated, but they kind of make excuses like, oh, we have financial problems, but boys are being educated. So it's obviously not a priority for them. And I think the Taliban probably itself is split on this issue. There are more progressive elements of the Taliban, and there are more conservative elements. And they probably don't consider it a big enough issue to have a big internal battle amongst themselves. So yeah, the reality is that girls post 13 are not being educated in a lot of this country. Yeah.
That's something that's troubling a lot of people. And you know
and women, the other thing, Jalal, I should tell you that women in general have all lost their jobs and they're staying at home. And
wow, okay, carry on. Sorry, I thought they said the opposite. Go on.
No, I saw one lady in a ministry the other day. Yeah. And after she left, I asked the guys, oh, so she's working here? And they said, no, she's not working here. But she just likes to come in, to kind of serve her country, but she's not working here. She's not supposed to be working here. We're just helping her. So yeah, it's, I mean, it's not just women that have lost their jobs. Nearly everyone's lost their jobs because there's no government revenue coming in to pay anybody. So most of the government workers and the teachers and the health workers, they're at home, or if they're coming in just to kind of serve the country, keep things going, but they haven't been paid for about 3 months. So yeah, it's, it is extreme, as you'll know, it's an extremely conservative society. Women are not too visible here. That was long before the Taliban. The Taliban have not invented this.
Well, see,
but I think,
yeah.
I think we also have to, Jalal, just to finish on this, I think we also have to put things in perspective, and the West loves to talk about women's rights because it's a stick to beat the Taliban with. But the reality is, I think if you ask most Afghans, they're just worried about where the next meal is coming from. And even the women's rights issue, it's an important issue, but it's not top of the list, even for ordinary Afghans, because literally there are millions that would leave the country tomorrow if they possibly could, because of not because of the Taliban, not because of women's rights, or not because of terrorism or whatever, but because the economy has collapsed.
Yeah, economy is collapsing, and the more that leave, the more faster it will collapse. The more that leave and give up.
It's such a shame, and there's a huge brain drain happening. Even those 120,000 people that left earlier on, even that I consider to be a crime against Afghanistan, because they were educated, skilled people, and they've left the country, and the country needs them. The West doesn't need them. The West does not need them. The West has enough skilled and educated people, but Afghanistan needs them. So it was like the theft of Afghanistan's human resources. And let's face it, Jalal, if the Americans or the British or the French put a plane on any airport in Asia and said, come, it's free, that plane would be full. They would be full, because the whole of Asia, the whole of Africa is going through an economic crisis.
Yeah. That's very well put. I mean, I think you're right in the sense that, I think a lot of people are speaking from ignorance. A lot of comments even from the imams in the West. I see the fanatical comments as well. They don't need that right now. And then you have the completely, murji, water-washed Islam versions as well, which I'm not surprised by some people. I don't know what boots they're licking, but ultimately the truth of the matter is the people in the country are safe right now.
Yes,
safer, a lot safer. In fact, I think many people have said it's safer in Kabul than it is in London, or you can get stabbed in the streets. You're not going to get stabbed in Kabul.
The other thing, the other positive thing is corruption. There is no, the last regime under the Americans was completely corrupt. They were obviously taking lots of American, British money, from everywhere, and they were stealing it. Ashraf Ghani is the ex-president who fled the country. He is literally the most hated man in the country. He fled with his millions. It was a racket. It was a mafia type racket. The international community literally invaded and occupied this country, and they said to people, if you cooperate with us, we will give you jobs. If you don't, we will kill you. That was the deal ultimately. And the level of corruption in the last government was huge, and everyone had to give bribes. And one thing that has changed now is that no one is giving anyone any bribes. The Taliban have clean hands when it comes to corruption, but that's what I'm hearing on the ground. Justice as well. You go to a court now, you get justice, swift justice. Whereas before you wouldn't get justice, you'd have to pay someone to get justice. And if you didn't have money, you wouldn't get the justice. So there are positives and there are negatives. And I think we should be honest about everything. I'm here. The Taliban know what I'm saying, by the way, because I'm sending them my reports, and I'm sending them the criticism as well as the good bits.
Yeah.
And they're fine. And they're fine about it. And they're not scary guys. I think 20 years ago, you could possibly call them scary guys, but they've changed a lot, and they're much more pragmatic. They're much more experienced. And I think, if they have stability, I think what Afghanistan needs to develop is stability and an absence of war, because that gives it a chance, at least, for attitudes to develop, for the country to develop, for the infrastructure to be built. But once you have war, you have no chance of developing, and it just becomes a chaotic situation where criminals have the upper hand.
I think that's true, and the corruption. There's a lot of corruption that's gone from the country. So there's a positive and a negative. I mean, there's a lot of positives for the end of occupation. There's a lot of positives for the country's ability to now build itself how it wants by its people. I don't like the word Taliban. I don't mean that offensively to the Taliban themselves. I don't mean that in a rude way. I mean, you're Pashtun, you're Afghan. And to say Taliban is as if you're an alien species from another planet. And then also, that's the racism I'm talking about, where a lot of Afghans treat Taliban as Pakistani. So if you're Taliban, then you're a Pakistani, which is another weird thing, considering Pakistan helped with the refugees for 20, 30 years. And then on top of that, these people these Pakhtun people have had their doors kicked in. They've had their daughters raped. They've had their sons killed. They've had complete funerals being bombed, weddings being bombed. They are the collateral damage of 40 years of war. And now they finally are able to come out and look after their best interests, their life, their health, their honor, their dignity first. And now, yeah, we can address the other issues. Most important issues later will be the education of girls and so on and so forth. But right now, everyone is just looking at this. I just find it difficult to give the value it deserves, the issue of girls' education. It's very important, but I'm struggling to give it importance, seeing the ignorant comments, I just call it stupidity. It's just dumb. You're forgetting 40 years of massive bombs being dropped on the country.
I think,
sorry?
Jalal, I think the debate about Afghanistan has been framed by and large by the English-speaking Afghan diaspora.
Yeah.
And obviously they have an issue because, you know, they're not in the country for a start. They're quite secular, a lot of them. And obviously,
religious. Yes, of course.
Yeah, a lot of them are anti-religious and obviously anti-Taliban. And
I'll tell you bluntly, the only time they're really Afghan, the only time they're actually really Afghan culturally is on Eid, when they put on Afghan clothing, or at a wedding, and some of their music. But the rest of their behavior, it's great. They're happy with their Western lifestyle. They're enjoying the Western lifestyle. So it's kind of odd to go back and point fingers and judge the villagers for living their village lifestyle.
No, I mean, look, the Taliban, or whatever you want to call them, I mean, they call themselves the Islamic Emirate now. Although I did say Taliban to their face several times, and they weren't offended by it.
No, that's not what I mean. That's not what I meant. They are Taliban. Absolutely. I'm saying they are the Pakhtun and the Farsiwan and all kinds of Afghans. They are people of the country. But by the Afghans, when they say Taliban, it's as if they're a foreign occupation.
Oh, right.
Forgetting the fact that the country's been foreign invaded for 20 years. Before that, another 20 years. So you got 40 years of war and devastation. How about the cluster bombs that were dropped? And they're just forgotten. And we're looking at girls' education, which is very important. But I'm just shocked. Are you not happy that the bombs are not dropping and people are able to come out of their houses and be safe? Is this not something to celebrate?
Yeah. No, I mean, there's a big picture and a small picture, isn't there? And the big picture for me is that the Western occupation is over. There is peace and security in the country, and there's a chance for an Islamic Afghanistan. And if you're a Muslim, you should be happy about those things. And there are some things we should be, we should have reservations about. But I think ultimately, Jalal, one thing I've noticed is that Afghans themselves are quite split. So Kabul, for instance, is the capital city, 8 million people. It is also the most liberal part of Afghanistan. And obviously there are lots of people here who benefited from the Western occupation because they got jobs, so a lot of them are unhappy. And I would hazard a guess that maybe even the majority of the population in Kabul is unhappy at the moment. However, the majority of Afghans live in the countryside, in rural areas, and they never benefited from the Western occupation, apart from getting killed, and bombed and their lives threatened. And obviously they're more religious, they're more conservative. That is the majority of the population in Afghanistan. And they're probably happy about the change. But, ultimately nothing is black and white. There are lots of shades of gray. And I'm trying to be as nuanced as possible. I don't want to insult the US intelligence.
Yeah, I think you're right. I tried to do an Eid festival in Kabul last year, I think it was. So I sent, because we do the Eid festivals in the UK and the West. It's a Dawah project. And I thought Kabul in Afghanistan could really use the smiles and laughter. So we launched the Eid festival in Kabul, and I struggled to get fair, equal men, women coming out. And this was not a school, this was not an education, it was a fun day. You can come out, get free food, have free fun. And vast majority were men. So that cultural behavior is still there, and that's going to take time. But anyways, aside from that, I think that it's really important to hear that it's not an institutional rule. These
no.
Yeah, we need to address them. The Taliban
I think they'll be flexible. I think they'll be flexible over it, but it will take time.
time. This is the key thing. It will take time. Education's a must. We know as an Islam, I appreciate your humility that you say, my Islam is a little bit different, etc. Not really. Islam, in terms of girls' education, it's a must. Absolute must. It is fard ain. It is not even fard kifaya. It is an obligation upon every single Muslim male and every single Muslim female to get educated. It is a command. So that's just one of the issues. Then you've got the workforce. I was under the assumption that at least the workforce, the women were still involved. So are we saying that you just happen to see women not getting paid, or is it a overall women are fired?
Well, generally, Jalal, you don't see that many women out and
by
about
default.
on the streets.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and and unfortunately, the women that I have seen on the streets tend to kind of be beggars. That's not completely true. I have seen women on the streets, but they're vastly outnumbered by men. And I think the population is quite evenly split between men and women. So they must be at home. And the workplaces I've been to, whether that's just restaurants out and about, or shops, or ministries, I've hardly seen any women in any of them, to be honest. So yeah, they're quite invisible in the capital city, Kabul. They're quite invisible, to be honest. So you can imagine in rural areas that would be even more the case. That's just the way it is over here.
That, I think in time it will change. I have a strong belief it depends. It will change for the better if the Afghans internationally re-engage in their country and they bring that education to their families. They bring that, a different lifestyle home. They have to come back. They have to interact with their relatives. Otherwise, the Afghans that have been there for 40 years or 50 years, they're only doing what they've always seen. So it's not an institutional rule from Islam to say the women can't be here, women can't be there. It is the way it is. And I'll
give you an example of how the Taliban have changed. I mean, obviously, during the 5 years they were in power in the 90s, they were quite infamous for targeting Shia, for example. Now, my translator is a Shia, and we've been talking to the Taliban nearly every day. They know he's Shia, and they're interacting normally with him, laughing and joking. And generally, obviously, they're never going to be, they have a different ideology. They're never going to be best mates, I guess. But they're taking a very pragmatic approach there. They're protecting Shia mosques. They're going out of their way to have good relations with Iran. So this is something that wouldn't have happened 20 years ago. So you can see the evolution of their thought.
I think there are foreign elements. We'll never completely, well, at least not anytime soon. There will be foreign elements involved, because I read many places where Taliban would denounce such attacks on Shias and Shia mosques. They would say, no, this is not us, etc. And then you had, I think you have certain groups that are just not seen, people not taking responsibility, and they're doing damage. Whether they are Western influences within the country, as we know, the CIA have done that in many countries many times over, or the KGB, or whoever was involved the past 40 years from Russia to America. Everyone's had fingers in there. So don't really know. But what I can say is that we're hopeful. It's time for change for Afghanistan. This is, it really needs that opportunity. They need their money back. They need their money back. They need their money unfrozen. They need their ability to trade. They need their ability to open up to the world. If we close them off in the West and force nobody to trade with them, then we're only forcing them to become worse than what we want them to be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's two things I want to say. One is that there's a very shady group called ISIS-K here. And literally, they're the ones doing the terrorist attack. They're bombing the mosques,
What's the K stand for?
Khorasan. ISIS Khorasan.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and no one knows where this group is sprung up from, and literally, it's so mysterious.
But it's only like 4 or 5 years old, isn't it?
It must be. Sorry.
It's only like 4 or 5 years old. It's not that old, is it?
Yeah, exactly. It must be being funded by some foreign group.
Of course it is. I saw a video of this guy. I think you need to meet him. I don't know if you know him. His name is Humayun. and he's a very famous YouTuber from Kabul. And he's from the day that Ghani left to now, he's become very famous. Afghans are watching him every day to see what else he's going to bring. And he's been walking to every camp. He's been going to everyone's house, including the Khorasani leader. I forget his name, the ISIS-K leader, whatever. He went to see him and he got his approach. He seemed like quite a young guy, very young. You know, I don't know what to say, but he was.
Everyone is young. Everyone. I mean, I feel really old here, you know, because I think even you see the Taliban, a lot of them are teenagers, early 20s. Even the ministers are like in their 30s, early 40s. So everyone's quite young here, I think. But what I wanted to say, Jalal, and it's quite important, is that the Ummah must not abandon Afghanistan, because if they do, this place will just collapse again, and there'll be another war, and it'll be another invasion, etc., etc. I think the solution has to be on a government level, because ultimately governments, you know, they can release billions of dollars in funds, all right, whereas we can't. But still, we have some level of responsibility as an Ummah to support Afghanistan.
Which governments are likely to help?
Well, obviously, the closest government to Afghanistan is Qatar at the moment, and they've sponsored the peace process. They're probably giving, you know, under the table, not officially, but they're probably channeling some funds. Obviously, Pakistan will help as well, but Pakistan is a poor nation. Iran, surprisingly, has good relations with the Taliban, which they forged during the war, because they both opposed the Western occupation to a certain extent. And they, believe it or not, they worked together during the war, not officially, but unofficially. And they would recognize the Taliban tomorrow, I think. Russia and China as well. I think they're trying to exact certain concessions from the Taliban, but I think if they recognize the Taliban, then you could see a flood of more people recognizing, more nations recognizing. But yeah, I just think that there has to be. I was thinking. What was the first country you mentioned?
What was the first one you mentioned?
Qatar.
Qatar. Okay. Has anyone recognized them yet?
No, nobody at all. Even during their last period in power, it was only 3 countries, I think the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Pakistan, who recognized them. But no one has yet. I think they will in the coming months, but at the moment, and they're doing intense diplomacy. They're going to different places, left, right, and center, to China, to India, to Pakistan, and they're meeting the international players. So I think the recognition will come, but they're obviously going to try to exact some kind of price for that recognition, whatever that is.
Of course, everything's a negotiation at the end of the day.
But you know, but in terms of how we can help, Jalal, I mean, it's not easy to get money into this country. You know, all the banks, the banking route is shut. Even Western Union is shut. So you can't really get money into this country from outside at all. You know,
if I wanted to transfer you some money right now, how can I do it?
Well, if you did that, your bank account will probably be closed down, and you'd be accused of terrorism. So you know, that's how bad it is. Yeah, literally, they would say, why are you sending money to Afghanistan? You know, that's literally what would happen. It's the same as if you tried to send money to Syria. Yeah, so it's not a realistic route. A lot of I think there's only 1 or 2 British charities operating in Afghanistan.
Do you know who they are?
Sorry?
Do you know who they are?
I think Islamic Relief does, so they're a big one. I think One Nation does, but I'm not sure if anyone else does, because they're scared of what the Charity Commission might say. Because they'll say, why are you working in
Al-Khair has an office. Al-Khair, Imam Qasim. He has
do they? I didn't know that. Yeah. Well, all I know is that a lot of British charities are not operating here. And I think some, you know, obviously the need is so much. I mean, the World Food Program is, so I guess people can donate to the World Food Program, and they are obviously doing some good work, you know, feeding people. But, you know, I just think that there has to be I don't know whether Muslims really want to give to the World Food Program. They would want to give to Islamic charities, wouldn't they? But there has to be a way of giving the money, and they'll know that it's going to go to the right people. It's not going to be stolen. There's going to be no corruption. It'll get to the needy people. We have to find a mechanism to do that, and I'm not sure one exists at the moment.
Wow, that's really insightful. So, brothers and sisters watching, wow, if I was to say right now, whoever's watching, start planning on saving up your money for Afghanistan, because if the funds are not released that are frozen, and these families struggle to make any money from now until the winter proper kicks in, there will be a lot of deaths on everybody's hands. A lot of babies, a lot of pregnant women, a lot of diabetics, a lot of elderly will die, and it'll be on everybody's hands who did not help if they could. So start saving up until this channel opens, because ultimately, how do we get these funds to them in the first place? So we're waiting for the big charities to step up and say, this is for Afghanistan. And any charity, if you know of any charity, you know I present, you know I fundraise. If I can support any charity, I will, if it's, of course, is safe to do so. And it's unfortunate, you know, charity commissions and everything else is there to make sure that, you know, those who are raising funds for these causes are doing so in the right way to the right people. So it is important. How, where, no idea. So right now everything's frozen. Not only are the accounts frozen, but can't even really help, it seems. I didn't know you couldn't send money to Afghanistan. I mean, not that I do it, so I wouldn't know. It's usually the charities that do it and they send the money across. I didn't know if they had stopped or not. But khair, inshallah, we pray that these countries recognize the government so that they can. What do you say to these Afghans? Funny that we're ignoring this. I forgot about this. The comments on Twitter and other places, these Western Afghans, quite strange. They are demanding everyone in the world to not recognize the Taliban. And I'm not pro-Taliban, anti-Taliban. I'm just asking, if they got it their way, I want to tell them this. If they have it their way and the Taliban are not recognized in the coming months, what will happen?
Well, their fellow Afghans will die en masse, thousands and tens of thousands or even more. So I think.
And do they know this? Do these people that's demand?
They don't care, Jalal. In my experience, they don't care. They're fanatics.
They don't.
And I think the best thing to do is just ignore them. They don't really. I don't believe they care about their fellow Afghans.
Of course they don't.
You know, they just care about their ideological positions. And ultimately, a lot of these guys were the people that ran Afghanistan under the Western occupation. They betrayed their own country.
Of course.
You know, in any country in the world, if you, whether it's Britain or elsewhere, if you collaborate with a foreign occupation force, what does that make you? It makes you a traitor.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, a lot of people here, they did collaborate with the Americans.
Yeah.
Some I personally, I take quite a hard line on this. I consider it treason. However, some did it out of desperation because they just wanted a job to feed themselves and their families. Others might have done it for more ideological reasons because they're pro-West. However, all of them assisted a foreign invasion and occupation. And these are the guys. Are those
the people the Americans hired? Afghans were hired from around.
Yes, of course, as translators.
They call them translators.
Translators and other people, you know, who. You know, for example, Bagram prison, where everyone was tortured for years on end, no charge, no trial, horrific stuff happened there. So a lot of Afghans weren't there, unfortunately, you know, and while their fellow Afghans were getting tortured and, you know, probably sodomized and much worse than that, you know, and killed, etc., etc. So, you know, these people are not people that I think you can have a debate with, because blood is on their hands for a start, but they sold out their nation. So how can you reason with those kind of people? Just ignore them and we can do our own thing. People who care about Afghanistan, who care about building the country, the welfare of the country, the welfare of the people, and Islam, of course. We'll just do our own thing. Those guys can get lost.
Okay, I'm down. What do we do?
What do we do? Well, that's a question that I can't necessarily answer yet, but I'm seeking to answer, because I want to actually, in the next week or so, I'm going to ask this question to a lot of people. What can we do? How can we commit to this country? Because I don't want to just parachute in and parachute out. You know, inshallah, I want to keep coming back to this country. Sure. I was even thinking of, well, I'm the editor of 5 Pillars. One thing that I can do personally is I can hire a journalist in Afghanistan to be our Afghan reporter. And that is giving someone a job, you know, and then he can feed himself and his family through that. And obviously, we are earning Western salaries. So we could pay, I don't know, if we pay $500 a month, that's a lot over here. You know, that's a lot.
I was told the past couple of years I had to hire my father had to hire some lawyers or some legal situation going on in Kabul with corruption, corrupt judges, the works. Anyways, so while he was dealing with that and he had to hire lawyers and stuff, it wasn't cheap. A price of eggs is £2 here, it's £2 there. Or dollars, sorry, to the point where everything was bought and sold in dollars.
Food is, my experience of the food is pretty cheap. I mean, prices are rising. I mean, I'm staying in a hotel, of course, so I'm paying, as a foreigner, I'm paying more than everyone else. I understand.
Of course you are.
But I'm not paying too much. And it's definitely not comparable.
I'm wondering if that's because the Taliban are here. Because before them, everything was US prices. I mean, everything that was, yes, lawyers, different drivers, different things. Well, I mean, you could, if you were a local, you got a better deal. But anything from the West, an Afghan family wants to do something at home with their house back in Kabul, they want to buy cement or something, whatever. Anything cost was in dollars, and there's probably a bit of bribery and extortion there as well. But the point I'm making is that while the Americans were there, or while that situation, what I got from everyone was everything was in dollars. So they got familiar with that, and everything was sold in dollars.
No, I think, I mean, the Taliban have said that local transactions should be in Afghanis, the local currency.
Yeah, they changed. However, that's what I'm saying. So everything changed, because before that, they wouldn't even trade in rupees or Afghanis. They wanted to trade in dollars because they knew they got more.
On the street, and in restaurants, and you know, everyone is using Afghanis. But for higher value transactions, like in hotels, people are asking for dollars. But yeah, they accept both currencies, I guess.
Well, yeah, they're very small.
I would say to people, I mean, I'm hoping that the situation will normalize in the coming months and years, and this place will open up. I'd encourage Muslims to come here, you know, and as tourists, you know, and give some money to the country, you know, make it a tourist destination. I haven't been outside of Kabul yet.
Well, if they have put these bars on the Afghanistan for trading stuff, is there also a bar on tourism then?
Well, there is no, I mean, this country isn't even on the red list, by the way, you know, in terms of Corona. It's not on the red list in terms of Corona. You can come in, it's not illegal to come to Afghanistan. Like, for example, it would be kind of illegal to travel to Syria. And if you came back from Syria, you'd be accused of all sorts.
Well, if I send money to Afghanistan, like you were saying earlier, if I send money to Kabul right now, my account might get closed because they think I'm funding something.
I think because obviously, Jalal, you have to understand that officially it shouldn't be closed, but unofficially, Muslims get treated differently to everyone else.
Yes.
You know, so for example, I'm fully expecting, Jalal, when I go back, I'm fully expecting to be Schedule 7th at the airport. Why have you been to Afghanistan? And that's why I'm being as open as possible. Now, there are other journalists here. Many foreign journalists are in my hotel. They're still here. They're not going to get Schedule 7 because, you know, they're white journalists, right? You know, and they're above suspicion, whereas Muslims were a suspect community. But I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm being very open about everything that I'm doing. But I bet you, Jalal, that I'm going to get Schedule 7 when I go back to England. And who knows? There even may be pressure put on 5 pillars. You know, and but myself and Dilly, my colleague, we talked to them about this even before I came here, and we thought this is too big a story for the Ummah for us not to cover it as journalists.
How did that conversation go before you left?
Well, we were both obviously, you know, I mean, we're under constant pressure, Jalal, as a British Muslim organization that's unapologetic, that calls out Islamophobia, that sticks tight to the rope of Islam politically and religiously. We're under a lot of pressure. And it's not official pressure, it's unofficial pressure behind the scenes. So our social media platforms will be shut down for a while. You know, there'll be whisperings in the counter-terrorism community about 5 pillars, even in parliaments, you know. And we know we're being targeted, but ultimately we consider this to be our, you know, media jihad, if you will. And, you know, Allah will protect us. He's protected us this far. He's given us this amount of success so far. So we are firm on our path. Alhamdulillah.
Allah give you Jannah. Allah give you success. May Allah give you guys success. And hopefully that you'll come back, and when you return safely, inshallah, I'm praying that you will tell me, Jalal, I was wrong. I was not section
Inshallah.
Schedule 7.
Yeah, that as well. Yeah.
So may Allah protect you. But
Okay.
tell me about life on the ground now, aside from the politics. So we already know what will happen if countries don't recognize them and they don't get the support. Most importantly, be allowed to spend their own money, because their money is frozen, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if that doesn't happen, thousands and thousands will die. And the aim is to obviously politically make people dislike the Taliban and put the blame on them. It's their fault to do it. Same time, what we can do, what people can do right now is not a lot, other than what you're doing, which is what 5 Pillars is doing. And people who can do business with Afghanistan, meaning you're Afghani, you live in Australia, you live in Europe, you live in America, you can go back and engage in business in Kabul. You're saying that's not illegal, that's not dangerous.
Well, I'm not saying that 100%, because even me, I'm not sure about what risk I'm taking in terms of British authorities. But as far as I can see, it's not illegal. No, it isn't. I mean, just to kind of leave the politics aside for a few minutes, Jalal, to give the viewers an idea of what it's like on the ground. As I said, I've not been outside of Kabul. I mean, all I can talk about is the people, because those are the people that I've been interacting with every day. The Afghans I've been interacting, they're just lovely, and all the doors have opened up for me. I think I'm getting special treatment because I'm also a foreign Muslim, I'll be honest, because I think a lot of the journalists, or all of the journalists virtually, they've come here, have been non-Muslim Western journalists, a lot of them with an agenda. And there's a funny story I can tell you as well in a second. But yeah, so people, when they find out that I'm Muslim, they're overjoyed, and doors open. And I just found everything quite easy, to be honest, because normally everything's a challenge when you go to foreign countries. And so many doors have opened to me. But I was in a meeting with a Taliban official, and it was myself and a French journalist, and we were both getting our journalistic credentials and our media permission to report. And the Taliban official, who spoke perfect English, basically said, guys, please don't look for sensationalist headlines. Respect Islamic red lines. I know that you're desperate to, that you all have an agenda. And he knew I didn't, but it was all directed at the French journalists. And then he went on about how you'll instantly know what I'm talking about here. Others might not. But he said, are you going to Panjshir to the French journalists? Because that is the stronghold of Ahmed Shah Massoud, and his family. And he said, because if you go there, he said, France can continue their love affair with the Massouds. So obviously he was kind of like calling out Western mainstream journalism. And I was there chuckling to myself, kind of having a bit of a laugh. And then he turned to me and he said, but Roshan, I'm sure we won't have the same problem with you and your values. And I said, yeah, 100%, my friend, 100%.
They are there for sensationalism. They have a quota to meet. They need some dirt. They need to do what they need to do. They've got an agenda, and that's why they're there. So we pray that Allah guides them and gives them the conscience to realize these people of Afghanistan have seen nothing but war, hatred of not just guns and bombs, but economic sanctions, ideological enforcement of culture devastation, cultural attacks from the West, the works. And being my roots, being my ethnicity, being Afghani, I know the hurt they've caused. Everyone from being a child, as a child, I knew that Russia had caused a lot of damage to my people and the people of Afghanistan, and then to see the same exact damage done by the West, it's from America to the European countries. It's downright shameful. It's disgraceful.
When was the last time you were in Afghanistan, Jalal?
When I was about 6.
Oh, okay. Oh, a long time ago.
I've never grown up there or been there. I mean, whatever could have been was when I was a little boy. So I was born there, and I think I was about 5 or 6. I left the country, and I grew up in Houston most of my life, and the rest of my life I've been in Europe. So I haven't been back.
Are you planning to come here and come back?
Absolutely, absolutely, inshallah. It's been my intention to go for a long time, but you know, it's a similar. It's just life, isn't it? Life has made it quite difficult for many reasons, including occupation, including you know, people like us are not looked at the same. I'm not white. I'm not blue eyes. I'm not blonde. I happen to be Afghan. I happen to have a beard on my face. I happen to pray 5 times a day. I happen to be a da'i who teaches Islam, teaches Quran. So obviously, I'm not the easiest person to travel. But anyway, so we pray Allah make that easier. I would love to go. Obviously, I'd love to visit.
I think you'll get the opportunity in the next months or perhaps years to come. You'll definitely get the opportunity. As I said, the main thing is that there's stability here now, security and stability.
Yeah, and that's safe. That's good to know. That's excellent to know. But it's just about if I travel. Well, anyways, yeah. So that's that person. I do look forward to coming soon. There's a lot that country needs help, and I would love to be part of any big charity. You're welcome to call me. If you know any charities that want to call me, call upon me. I'll help with the raising of awareness, free of charge. Okay, free of charge. Raising of awareness, raising funds, getting support. Ultimately, I want to help the poor people of Afghanistan. I'm not that politically intelligent, simply because I'm a very blunt and honest, straightforward person. So, yeah, I see hypocrisy. I see hypocrisy for what it is. I call a spade, and ultimately, that's not very welcomed, you know, in the current climate. So I think that right now, Afghanistan needs everyone's prayers and dua. This is the best thing that could have happened to the country has happened, which is everyone's left it alone in terms of invading force or occupation. It's an opportunity. Afghans from all sides, I'm hopeful and I'm praying to Allah, all types of Afghans come back together. Roshan, I was invited to speak on a Twitter platform a couple of weeks ago. It was awkward as hell. I was invited to speak on this Twitter platform with the very one-sided mentality Afghans who were very much anti-Taliban. And I'm not saying I'm pro-Taliban, but my God, the nonsense they were saying. It was very, very emotionally charged by all of them. So I was just sitting quiet. I couldn't really speak. I was asked to speak, but I didn't. I waited to the very end, and the comments that were made by one man repeatedly, every person that spoke, he asked them, well, what do you want to see change? How are you going to, what do you think will solve the problem? What do you think will solve the problem? And everyone repeated the same nonsense. It was just rhetorical. They have no idea what will solve the Afghan crisis. So in the end, I said, can I say a few words? I said, yes. And I said, they were very bleak about it. Oh, we've got such a dark past. It's such a dark history. It's such a dark story, Afghanistan. And I said, you know, subhanAllah, every one of you said one thing in common when you were asked what's the solution. Every Afghan said, unity. We need to unite. We need to get rid of this fanaticism and be united, etc. And I said, well, once upon a time, you were united. For 1,000, 2,000 years, no problems. Yeah, all the different tribes got along beautifully. Your disputes were just in-laws arguing. So you had that. What changed? What changed these 40, 50 years? You're saying you have a bleak past of dark history. That's only 40, 50 years. Before that was a beautiful history. So what changed that history to now that so many different Afghans have so many different views and they're really at each other's throats? Why is that for the past 30, 40 years? Because once upon a time, every 3-year-old, 5-year-old, 10-year-old didn't just memorize Arabic, but actually knew the definition and meanings of the Quran. They knew Islam. They were educated in dunya and akhirah. They were educated in everything. Boys and girls once upon a time. They had knowledge and they knew the truth. They knew the piety of Iman and attaining Jannah. And that is what Pakhtunwali I've always known. I don't know this Pakhtunwali that I've seen in the media lately. I don't know it. The Pakhtunwali I know does not say girls cannot be educated. Never has done. In fact, the entirety of Pakhtunwali I've known has been Islam, better than any culture on the planet, because every culture has their traditions in it. Pakhtunwali didn't. To me, Pakhtunwali had Islam in it. Completely. Now, this new thing that's coming up, I don't know. This we have to look into. Whatever it is that's going on is wrong. It needs to be fixed. But so I offered them the solution. I said, why don't we go back to the past? Start with you Afghans and me, all of us. Start studying our roots, study our religion, get to know it better. Not interested. The comments that were made were, religion is what's causing our problems. You want us to learn more religion. And that, in a nutshell, is Western brainwashing. To think that you don't need religion. The agnostic belief, but I'm Afghan, I'm Muslim. What are you talking about? You're Afghan, you're Muslim. There's nothing Afghan about you, and there's hardly anything Islamic about you. It's really, it's a lie they tell themselves. And right now, this is what I think it's an opportunity for us to bring everyone back to the table with a little bit of time, a little bit of patience. Everyone needs to study and learn. I'm not ignoring the arguments made. The arguments about girls, about women working, all of that, and everything else, Islam has the right answer for. And inshallah, we need to take the Taliban to account for that. They need to work on that. I think it seems like they're open to this advice. They're open to criticism. And I think in time, all of this should iron out, inshallah. I hope anyway. It did. Everything I said right there sound a bit too crazy, or did it make sense from what you said?
No, I think there's this reflex, even amongst British Muslims, there's this reflex tendency to compare the Taliban to ISIS or Al Qaeda, and that is just not the case. It's not the case. And you know, they are reasonable people who can be reasoned with. Yes, they have their positions, and we won't agree with all of their positions. However, they ultimately are our Muslim brothers and sisters. And we should have husn al-dhan to a certain extent, while at the same time, you know, kind of holding them to account when they're clearly going against what Islam says. But yeah, I've sat with them for the past week, and I've spoken my mind. And yes, of course, they know that I am a Muslim reporter who isn't anti-Afghanistan and isn't anti-Islam. So maybe they're giving me a bit of leeway. I admit that. But I must admit, I'm not a naive person, and I found them to be reasonable people who will listen.
That's really reassuring. That's really reassuring. I'm hopeful that their mistakes can be rectified. But most important, I say to all Afghans, religious and non, you have to engage, because whatever change, like politically, okay, here in the West, Democratic Party doesn't like the Republican Party, and the Whig Party doesn't like so-and-so. So you have to engage to see the changes you want to see done in society. So with the Taliban, with Afghanistan, I'm praying that that's the case, where people can engage and change it and fix the issues, because ultimately Taliban is not a disease. It's not an alien species. It's not a foreign occupation force. It is the people that live there. So if we want to see change, we have to help them. We have to educate them. We have to change them. We can't wish it away, because that's their land. They live there. They're not going away.
Jalal, can I be a bit rude and take my leave?
Not at all. You're not being rude. You're not being rude. I've dragged it out as much as I can. And Roshan, just tell me on a final note, on the ground, is there any shortage of anything, food-wise, oil, you know, cooking-wise, lifestyle-wise? Is there any shortage?
Well, I know that the Turkish charity IHH, they delivered 100 tons of wheat or something just the other day. I mean, I must admit, I can't answer that question, Jalal. I'm sure there are shortages of everything. I'll have to kind of do my homework and come back to you on that one. But obviously, this is Kabul, it's the capital, and the crisis will hit the rural areas first before the capital. But all I do know is that people are struggling, you know, and they're really price conscious as well. You know, just working with my translator and my fixer, I see how price conscious these guys are. When they buy food and stuff like that, you know, they really don't want to, you know, the equivalent of something like 50p, you know, we think nothing of 50p. They're really haggling over it because they know that that could make a crucial difference somewhere along the line. So, but in terms of answering your question directly, I can't, but I'll get back to you on that one, inshallah.
I'm looking forward to your reports. I'm looking forward to what you post, and I think in a few days we'll do this again. And I won't drag it on like this next time. This is our first time, so I had a lot to say. I'm really grateful, Roshan. I'm really grateful.
All right, good night, Jalal. Assalamu nice speaking to you.
Have a wonderful evening. Take care, inshallah. Stay safe. We'll speak to you soon. Assalamu alaikum.
Bye.
Brothers and sisters, thank you for tuning in. That was Brother Roshan live from Kabul. It was a very interesting, very fruitful conversation. If you disliked anything that was said, or if there's anything you have views about, please share them. And we'd like to address everything. The worst thing that people can do is disagree and then not discuss it. Disagreements, and all of our Muslim brothers and sisters, anything we disagree with, anything we don't like, we should bring it to the table, discuss it. Just earlier today, we had a whole day seminar on tug-of-war between men and women, fighting for their rights, etc. These are issues that are there. Domestic violence is an issue, sadness, abuse, etc. These are all issues, and we bring them to the table. We have to address these issues, no matter how scary or how sensitive the subject may be. We have to do that. So please do support Five Pillars. Sign up to their newsletters or whatever, read their website, support them, mashallah. They do great work. Brother Diddy's a good brother who does a lot of good posts, and Brother Roshan as well, the same, inshallah. So may Allah bless both of them with success in this life and the akhirah. May Allah grant you all success. Keep me in your dua, inshallah. I bid you farewell. Anything correct I've said is from Allah Azza wa Jal. Anything I've said incorrect is from me. May Allah forgive me for saying it and make you forget I said it. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. The sacred words of the Quran were sent by Allah to Angel Jibreel and conveyed to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. For over 1400 years, the Quran's legacy has remained unchanged and passed from generation to generation. A book we have sent down to you so that you may bring forth mankind from the darkness into the light. Surah 14 verse 1. This Quran legacy is a gift box designed for you to continue this honored legacy of preservation, reflection, and understanding the words of your Lord in your own home. A box of barakah that makes family time meaningful again. Reflect on the translation of the Quran in easily understood English. Encourage your children to write their deeply provoked thoughts and feelings in the beautiful Quran journal provided. Enjoy the treats of aromatic teas and luxury snacks as you discuss and debate the incredible stories of the past. The Quran Legacy gift box would make the perfect family gift to someone you truly care about. This is a box every house must have. With Ramadan and Eid around the corner, order yours today.